Welcome to Trading Nation. I'm Morgan Brennan, joined by Bill Stone, a Global Chief Investment Strategist at PNC Asset Management. Bill, thank you for joining us today, and Happy New Year.
Thanks for having me. Happy New Year.
So, you called it, that we would get tax reform before the end of 2017. You also said that stocks would continue to rally this year, even when others on Wall Street were sort of doubting both of these possibilities. So I just have to give you a little kudos there. But in light of that, what is your market outlook for 2018?
I guess I've gotten a little less optimistic. It's not bad. I think we have a good chance to still clock in at some sort of maybe even high single-digit numbers. I just think you're likely to get and this may not be that much of a fearless forecast, but a significantly more amount of volatility. I do think it's going to be hard for stocks to get more expensive. So in other words, we think because of that tax reform you mentioned earlier, you probably see earnings grow somewhere at around 15% in 2018. I just don't think you're going to get that full 15% in U.S. stocks next year.
So in light of that fact, what do you see as a potential headwind in 2018?
So one thing is the economy still looks good. The only thing I would say is maybe that finally the market discounts too much good news and we finally maybe peak out. That's something I'm watching for. I'd say the other part is if we do see yields move up significantly. We just haven't seen it, of course. But eventually, if bonds become a better competitor to stocks, I think that's where you probably run into some more trouble. But it's tough. Valuations you say are difficult. I'd say on an absolute they're expensive. Relative to yields, they're not expensive. But valuations really don't do you much good in trying to forecast short-term performance anyway.
You mentioned that we could see some more volatility in 2018. Certainly, there's not been a lot of that in the markets this year. But there has been one place where we've seen it, and that is Bitcoin and the sort of cryptocurrency craze. What is your take on that going into 2018? Do we go higher? Do we go lower? Does this become even more mainstream? Does the bubble pop?
Yeah, what we've said about it is, let's say we give it all the benefit of the doubt, and these are really currencies, okay? And they're, it continues on. Even then, the problem with it is if you just think of all the currencies in the world, they generally don't have an expected positive return over the long term. So I think you have to treat them perhaps more like currencies. I know, we've seen some big gains at times out of them. I just think you have to consider them speculations. I can't figure out a way to value them. I know people will say, well, if it becomes this percentage of the total monetary base, it's worth this much. Great. But I don't know how you're going to come up with that number to actually get there. I guess I'd say we would say caution people that it definitely has to be sized as a speculation. I'd say, hey, if you're really interested in maybe a currency or an alternative currency that actually has a history, gold may be more appropriate if you think you want to diversify away from, say, fiat currencies.
I'm glad you brought that up because there's been a lot of debate about Bitcoin as a currency or even Bitcoin as a commodity, but you are starting to hear, and I'm starting to hear, that maybe some folks are approaching it as if it's digital gold. But you're saying go with the real thing.
Well, here's the problem is, they can say that they're only going to, mine so much of this cryptocurrency and have it out there. I just am not clear that, since let's use Bitcoin, we don't even know who really, or who the actual person is who really founded it originally. We have a name, but they don't really know who that person is exactly. So do you really trust that it'll necessarily not go beyond its means? The one thing I can tell you about gold is they actually have to mine it and go get it. And so there are actually those physical constraints that stop even people from doing it. So I think that's the place where I'd say I guess I don't have a huge trust of my fellow human beings when it comes to money. So I think I would prefer gold if I'm really going to think about if I really need a store of value. Again, speculation, I may be wrong. The cryptocurrencies could be a great speculation. It's just as I'm thinking about if what I'm trying to do is a store of value, I do know hundreds of years that gold has outpaced inflation. Again, in short periods, it doesn't necessarily, but at least I feel pretty good that it'll still be around and still be a pretty good store of value over time.
Great. Well, it's definitely, I think, something we're going to continue to talk about into 2018, especially some of these other alternative cryptocurrencies become a bigger deal, some of them that are actually tied to business. But Bill Stone, it's great to see you. Happy holidays.
Thank you. You too.
PNC Asset Management. Thank you for joining us on Trading Nation.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.